Come on, where's my...
Hello and welcome, everyone. Welcome to another Solution Sunday, because being the soul you are is the solution. Today, the solution to our traumas, living in survival mode, is Lianne. This conversation with Lianne, we're going to show you how to move from survival to thrival. We're not here to live in survival mode anymore. We are here to change all of that, to start thriving and to being happy. Today's guest is Lianne Hofer. She is a happiness architect, and she is here to help us, show us how to create our own happiness. Lianne, welcome.
Hi, Lisa. Thanks for having me.
It's always a pleasure. I love having our conversations. I love having you as a guest. Thank you for coming back.
Oh, thanks. Well, I love hanging out with you. I'll hang out with you all day long. You just say the word, I'm there.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So, Lianne, you've been recently in a book that talks about moving from survival to thrival. Do you want to start with that?
Sure. So I was in a book called Stop the Silence, and it is thriving after childhood sexual trauma. And I was with about 20, 25 other brave souls who came forward with their story. And we get to share a little bit about our story, and then we share a healing practice that we've used. And the cool thing is this book recently has gained some attention and it's won an award.
Yay, congratulations.
Thanks.
That's
So now I'm like
awesome.
double award winning author, because I also got to participate in one of Keith's books, who I know is a frequent guest.
Yeah.
And I was in Navigating the Clickety Clack, and we won an award there too. So it's kind of fun.
Exactly, right? To be an international award-winning bestseller. It's
Twice.
exactly beautiful. Congratulations.
Thanks. It's so funny because I don't think of myself as that. And I was talking with somebody recently and it came up, and it was so fascinating how that isn't where my focus is.
Yeah. Right?
So like, even when you reached out, you're like, you want to talk about that? I was like, yeah, sure.
It's so, to me, it's really, really interesting looking at society and seeing the trends and seeing what's happening now, seeing, all of the transsexual movement, like this is like a huge thing now. And to be in a position where I am, where I understand the direct connection between our consciousness and our health and our reality, we start to see like these are trauma responses. And like people don't understand in general, I think, what trauma actually is. They think of, like blunt force trauma, you get in a car crash, or, you get hit in the head with a baseball bat or something, but that's not what trauma necessarily is. Do you want to talk a little bit about what trauma can be?
Sure. So I think that's one kind of trauma. And then there's that emotional mental trauma, right? That's just another category. So it's kind of like health, right? You've got spiritual health, you've got physical health, you've got emotional health, you've got the mental health. It's the same kind of thing. But what's interesting is how it presents in the body. So, I was a victim for years, and as an adult, I ended up with an ovarian cyst. Well, they're definitely connected in my mind. And then after the book came out, isn't it interesting that the cyst resolved? So another example would be when I was a dental hygienist in a previous life, and I had gone to physical therapy because, of course, sitting in that fantastic position for 40 hours a week was just so good for my back. And the physical therapist was working on me, and I burst out in tears. I said, "What the heck was that?" And he's like, "Oh, I know exactly what that is. That's stored memories in your muscle." And it was the first time I had ever heard of that. And it was really fascinating.
Yeah. We don't really think of trauma as, like being misunderstood by a parent, or being told that we're wrong for either thinking something or doing something as a child. And all of these things can be very traumatic,
Oh yeah, having a baby can be traumatic.
right?
Like trauma for everybody is so individual. I mean, it doesn't have to be, something majorly amazing. You don't have to like survive a earthquake, to
Exactly.
have been through trauma. I mean, your trauma could be that there was a bully in second grade. I mean, that could be your trauma.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Or that your mom had to go to work after 2 or 3 months, and left you with somebody else. It's like these are traumas. And
Yeah.
they have emotional impact on children. And I think one of the things that I've really noticed a lot is that there's an overwhelming assumption that children, babies, infants, toddlers don't know anything, and that they're empty vessels and that we have to teach them everything. And I have many memories from very, very early childhood, even before I was walking. And I was very aware. I understood a lot about what was going on around me. And
Same.
right? And when your parents are looking at you like you're an empty vessel and you don't know anything and that you don't have any capacity to respond when you actually do, that's a big trauma.
It can be. And something that afterwards, later in life, you can't articulate because most of us don't remember being kids. So, like, one of the things that I remember, I have a couple of very distinct memories from before I was walking. And one of them being my father would come home from work and come over to talk to me while my mother was cooking in the kitchen or making dinner or whatever. And I remember thinking, I'm going to change what I'm saying to match because he says the same thing every night. I'm going to change what I'm saying to match what he's saying. I remember having that thought. Now, did I have it in those exact words? I don't know, but it was definitely that was the meaning behind my thought. Um, Another time I remember having an after talking to my mother, they were my first year baby pictures. And I remember everything that I thought when that picture sitting at the studio was being done, what I was thinking and why I did different things. She's like, "Oh, is that why you kept throwing that bear?" I'm like, "Yeah." So it was kind of interesting being able to look back, but we're not empty vessels. We do remember. And I think, we have this, our brain gets filled up with all these other things and we kind of forget it and we aren't able to articulate it.
Exactly. And we look we I have the feeling that we're not supposed to forget, massive years of our childhood. I think that's also part of a trauma. That a trauma response is to just forget all of this stuff. I don't think we're meant to forget all of it.
I think that that might be a protective thing too, right? Like, the more work I've done, the more things that I've remembered, but yet the work has been varied. Like, yes, I've had traditional therapy, but I found a lot of stuff through the energetics, through sound healing, through Reiki, through healing hands, through mediums, just all of those kinds of alternative care where I've really been able to find some of this stuff.
Right? Isn't it amazing that the things that are fully natural and actually free, herbs and energy, and now they're all labeled as alternative. It's like,
Yeah,
really? Alternative to what? The gold standard of pills and procedures,
right. Alternative, but they've been practiced for thousands and thousands of years
right?
since the dawn of time. What did we have? We had plants.
Exactly.
And it wasn't until the 1950s, I think it was, that we started using rubber on our shoes, which
And
disconnected us from the planet.
exactly. So we start to look and we start to really, when we open our eyes, when we're able to take a couple of steps back and observe just objectively what's going on, we start to see that we as humanity are being traumatized on a daily basis, which has us all living in survival mode, fight or
Mm,
flight, constantly active.
yep, all the time. And that does so much to our bodies, right? Then our bodies are out of whack and we can't. Oh my gosh, where do you want to go with that one?
Right? I mean, our bodies were not meant to be in fight or flight mode. You know,
Not constantly, no. We're supposed to be able to get out of that event and then be able to move forward. And yet when we're constantly being hit on all of these angles, we can't get out of it. No wonder, they talk about stress being the biggest killer. Well, yeah.
exactly. It's like constantly having your car in drive with your foot on the gas and on the brake.
And you know what happens when you do that? The gas wins eventually.
Right. It's
Yeah.
like your car is gonna wear out, you can't do that. You can't sit there and just be revving that engine all the time and having that pressure. And
Mm,
that's what it's like in our bodies. And our bodies are constantly giving us feedback. And
that's
it's first of all, it's in the feedback in just the sensory, it's like, ooh, I feel fear, or ooh, that doesn't feel right, or really, like what, like there's feedback from our bodies. We feel something that's like, oh, a little uncomfortable. But then we're taught to override our inner guidance. So like from childhood, it's like, no, I don't want to drink that milk. You will drink that milk. I don't want to drink that milk. You're gonna drink that milk, whether you like it or not, and you're gonna sit like,
you're
oh,
not getting up from the table until you clean your plate.
exactly. It's like, wait a second, this isn't right. And so we're just taught, sit down, shut up, listen to the teacher, do what you're told. When our inner guidance is like, but I want to be out playing. Like, I don't want to be sitting in this desk.
That's one of the things. My son had an international teacher when he was in grade school and for one of the years. And one of the things that I really liked that she did was that she took the kids out both morning and afternoon for time to run and play and be outside and be kids. She's like, these kids should not be sitting here for these many hours without movement.
Exactly.
And then the school instituted where the kids had to walk. They had like a running track. They had to walk the running track. And my son used to say, I hate doing that. I just want to go out and play. And it was like, well, they're trying to offset the sitting so much to make sure that everybody moves during that time. I said, just go out there and run it real fast and get it over with, and then go play. You'll be good. And then
Mm-hmm.
he ended up joining a running team.
Hey, there you go.
But that was one of the things that she did that I really liked, was that she had the kids move around a lot during the day. 'Cause I think that we do make our kids sit too long in school.
Exactly. And then when they don't want to sit and they're fidgeting around, and we go, oh, you have ADHD. Well, you need to be on medication. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh,
Give them 20 minutes to go run around and play tag for a little bit and then bring them back in. They'll be able to sit so much better.
right. And why are we in school for 6 hours a day or 8 hours a day?
Mhm.
That's not like, what are we actually learning by doing that? That's more trauma. Like, people don't look at school as trauma, but it actually is, because we're not designed to sit there for 8 hours a day or 6 hours a day and focus on junk. most of what we're learning, we're not learning anything. We're just memorizing things that we're told to memorize.
And yeah, they don't teach us critical thinking. They don't teach us, and now they're not even teaching the kids how to write in script, which is supposed to do something else in the brain. It's supposed to activate, I don't know enough about it, but apparently it's supposed to activate something else for some sort of other kinds of thinking. I'm sure one of your listeners knows what it is. But they're not teaching that either anymore.
Right? Well, I mean, this is like one of the ways that we bring our thoughts into physicalness, is to be able to write our thoughts down. And that act of writing is an act of creation. And
Mm.
if we don't know how to write, how are we going to actually start creating and sharing our thoughts?
And then we don't, and then how do we express ourselves, right? I mean, we're told sit down and shut up, essentially.
Mhm.
So we're not expressing ourselves verbally. Our bodies are being told to just sit in a chair when our bodies are trying to express themselves. Now we're not even able to write them down. Holy moly, no wonder we're having a mental health crisis.
Exactly. Right. And, we're never taught life skills, like how to balance a checkbook. I worked in a bank for a short period of time. I can't tell you the number of adults, 25, 30-year-old people coming in and going, I don't get it. Like, there are still checks left. Like, how come you're saying I don't have any money? I mean, like, that was like a real thing that happened more than once. And having to take them and go, okay, here's how this works. I'm like, really? Like, or to make change. God forbid the electricity goes out, nobody would ever be able to sell another thing because they can't make change anymore.
No, and the way they're teaching math is not the way you and I learned math. And we learned
Right?
math from a very different way than these kids are learning. And it's so fascinating. So my aunt was actually teaching math on the collegiate level when my son was learning this, whatever this new math thing is that they're doing. And to listen to the two of them have a conversation, I'm like, you're speaking a language I don't speak. It was so fascinating.
Wow.
So yeah, and it doesn't make sense the way they're being taught.
It does not. And there's, when we step back and we just start looking objectively at what's happening, like we see that there's a reason that none of it makes any sense. There's a reason they're keeping the population in fight or flight mode. There's a reason
Mm.
that we are being traumatized from every direction in school and through the media. And a dumbed down society that has no critical thinking skills can't rebel because they don't know that they even need to rebel. Life is just the way it is. And we've just been taught that war is a natural thing, that living in states of poverty and disease are just normal. This is not normal at all, people.
This is the cool thing about that's happening with social media, right? So they all thought, they're going to program us with this social media. Now, depending on what you're doing and where you're at, yes, but the message is getting out and people are responding. So I had somebody responded. I just put up a little quote on my story on Instagram, I think it was, and someone responded back and said, "Yeah, people aren't encouraged to think anymore for themselves." And it was, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea that she even thought like that." So it was really cool because it brought us to a whole new conversation. So now we're going to meet up for coffee and have a conversation. I'm looking forward to it.
Ah, that's nice. Yeah. It's just, if we don't see what's going on and we don't see that we're being traumatized, we can't do anything about it. When we
No,
think,
kind of like the frog in the hot water, right?
exactly, yes. It's like when we think that trauma is just a normal part of life and it's just something we have to deal with, then we can't put a stop to it. And it just keeps going. But
Hmm.
this is like this beautiful thing is that we're starting to really see that, wait a second, life does not have to be traumatic. We don't need to survive life. Like, we're not here to be survivors of anything. We're here
Mm-mm.
to be thrivers. We are grand beings of light. We are souls here, infinite souls with creator abilities. And
Yeah,
we are here to create, to thrive, to be happy, to live our lives, not survive our lives. And there's a huge difference.
enormous. I love the term Earth School.
Yes.
Like Earth School changes everything. It's like, oh, I made a mistake. Okay, well, how do I fix it? How do I not do that next time? How do I do that differently to get a different outcome? And it's like this like big, huge science experiment. I feel like I'm in this gigantic science class where I get to try all these things and just see what happens. And occasionally, yeah, we blow some stuff up. And but a lot of times we get to create really cool things.
Exactly. When we have that shift of consciousness and we start to realize, like, wait a second, just because everybody told me that this is what's true doesn't really mean that this is what's true. Like, let me step
And
back.
that's the cool thing is that people are starting to realize that, oh, I've always been told that I have to go here, but wait a minute, I don't have to buy my vegetables from it. I mean, I love the one kid that there was some video of some kid, it was talking about a canned good and stop farming, but get your vegetables from a can. And I was like, I mean, the kid was serious. That's really what he thought, which was immensely horrible and sad,
Right?
but fascinating that he was convinced of that. And then to be able to watch, then the next meme is, they show this woman with the babushka hat and, the apron, and she's out in the garden. And they were like, people always thought it would be a warrior taking over the world, but it's really going to be, the woman with the babushka and the apron, and it's loaded up with, the cucumbers and the tomatoes and, a handful of herbs.
Right? Exactly. She'll be the one that saves the world for sure.
Hmm.
Wow.
Kind of
Cool.
cool. Yeah. So, but
Exactly.
yeah, but then people were, it was just fascinating that somebody could be so convinced that that was it and just be so um and I think that's the other thing, right, is that we have to stay open to different ways of looking at things.
Hmm.
So one of the ways that I was able to work through a lot of the trauma. Now it's a lifelong experience. Am I over it? No, not yet. Still working with it. It's a part of who I am. I got a lot of gifts from it, so I'm grateful for those.
Hmm.
But it's changing the way you look at something to help you process through it. And I think that's sometimes, moving yourself from over here to over here to look at it, you get to look at it differently. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. And, so many people are just so convinced that over here is the way it is and it's the only way it is. And they refuse to allow their consciousness to just simply move enough to see from a different perspective.
But we've been told only here, we can only be here. And then when you just move over just a little bit, all of a sudden the perspective starts to change. And then it gives you that permission to keep going, to go somewhere else.
Exactly. And I think that's the mark of an open mind is a mind that is flexible can allow the consciousness to move in any direction. When we start to see that, I'm really, really, really miserable and, I don't want to stay on this planet, which was my story. I was like, I don't like this story. Like, I don't want to continue to live this story. I want
Mm-hmm.
to create a better story. I want to be able to be on this planet and thrive. Like, I don't want to be living in constant states of fear and worry. Like, how do I move myself over so that I can see a different perspective? And what I learned was that when I was able to move myself far enough over in a different direction, happy, healthy, peace, ease, joy, harmony, like wow, it's all over here. It wasn't over there where they taught me to be. It's over here where I moved myself, where I started to use my own sense of direction, that internal guidance. It's like, hey, let's move way over here so that we can see what it looks like from the opposite perspective.
Yeah, I love that. I'm so glad that you did. Thank you.
Me too, right? It makes for a much happier existence, much healthier existence.
Exactly, exactly. But it's really, it's taking those moments of looking at something differently and being open to, like you just said, being open to it. I mean, that's that is, I think, the key that turns the lock.
Exactly. So for me, it was, facing cancer and going, oh my God, what am I going to do? And then just going, well, I'm not going to do this. Like, I'm not going the medical route. I'm not going the path that they have already pre-paved for me to go down,
Mhm.
so I'm going to go a different route, which was like scary as all get out in the beginning. But like, that was the thing that literally saved my life. So, and then to be able to just be happy and help other people see that they can just be happy and healthy too is super cool. So, how did you end up becoming a happiness architect, and what does that mean?
So, I guess I decided a long time ago that I was just not going to identify as a victim, although maybe I felt it a little bit. I wasn't going to identify as that, and just found that I was just better when I was happy. When I was about 4, I remember sitting in this little diner. It was a really fun little ice cream diner. We used to go once in a while, my mom and I, for lunch. We're out running errands, and we were sitting in the booth. And just like my mom, I looked at every page in that menu. I looked at every picture, and then I closed the menu just like she did, and I put it on the end of the table just like she did. And the waitress came over and she had a ponytail and she was snapping her gum. It's like in the 70s, right? She's snapping her gum. She's walking over. She's got her blue eyeshadow on. She's like, "So, honey, what do you want?" She's snapping her gum, right? So I ordered whatever it was I always ordered. And then she turned to my mom to take the menu, and my mom wouldn't even look at her. She was like mean. She was short. She was curt. She was the whole thing, and pretty much kind of like threw the menu, kind of slid it so it would almost like fall off the table. And I watched the waitress turn around, and the bounce was gone. She wasn't snapping her gum. Her ponytail wasn't flipping like it had been flipping. And it was in that moment I decided that I was going to be happy.
Ah,
And it's kind of cool that I remember that. And it was interesting. It wasn't until I was in the training that I was able to discover that moment. But ever since then, I've just decided I'm just going to be happy. It doesn't matter. Just be happy. And when you're happy, your life is better and things flow better. And then I was certified with Marcy Scheimoff, one of her first inaugural classes to be a certified happy for no reason trainer.
mm,
And it's been cool. But in the end, I've been organizing with people for 13 years professionally, and everybody's trying to be happy. That's all we're trying to do. We're all trying to be happy. No matter what our programming is, we're trying to be happy. We're programmed that we have to buy all this crap to be happy.
exactly.
And the more crap that we buy, the bigger the house we need, the harder we have to work, the more we have to work, the more time we're spending away from our family and the things that we like, and having time to do the things that we want. And it's so fascinating how when we organize the space and we take away all of that clutter, all of that stuff, we get underneath it, and people are like grown men jumping up and down in their closet, clapping their hands. It's like, really? Professional football players doing that. So, when you're happy, life can flow, the energy flows, and life is good. And I was just watching people buying all this crap trying to be happy, and with all the right intentions, right?
Right.
They've got a blender, and then they've
Yeah.
got a ninja, and then they've got a whatever the other thing is, and then another thing, and then another thing. And
Mhm.
it's like they're buying it with the intention of creating healthy food, which is fabulous.
Right.
but there's so much crap in the cupboard, they can't find the parts to any of it, and they end up ordering a pizza instead.
Oh my gosh. I
So,
remember, yeah, I fell into that. I fell into that trap for sure. You know, having just buying things that I thought were going to make me happy, and just remembering, just realizing like how unhappy I truly was at that time. And I remember at one point I was taking a class with someone, and he said, well, just be happy. I'm just like, screw you, I'm happy to be happy about. Like, how am I supposed to be happy? I'm miserable. My life sucks. Look at all this stuff going on. There's something wrong with me. I don't know what to do. I can't fit in. I don't have any money. Like, I don't have anything to be happy about.
and
So,
then all those myths, right? Like, I'll be happy when I get a promotion, get married, have a child,
right,
have the car,
win the
all those,
lottery. Yeah, exactly.
lose 10 pounds.
Yeah, yeah. So, what do you tell people who are in that space of like, I can't be happy?
Well, we have a conversation of where can you start, because you can start anywhere. You start in your physical space, you can start with your diet. You can, how often are you sleeping? um are you going to bed before midnight, or are you a night owl staying up all night and not getting enough sleep? It's shocking how many people are not getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep at night. I mean, if you're not, and then the other thing that they've shown, and I forget if it's Ayurvedic, I think it's Ayurvedic, where they say between 9 and 12 is when you're producing the most growth hormone, the most repair work is being done in those hours of sleep. But yet people aren't going to bed until 11, 11:30, 12 o'clock, 12:30. They're missing that whole window. So for your body to be asleep before midnight, all of that time is almost doubled for what your body does in those hours versus what it does after midnight.
Wow.
So something as simple as just start going to bed 15, 20 minutes early for a couple of nights, and then bump it up another 15, 20 minutes, so that it's not like you're trying to go to bed 2 hours earlier. And then you're sitting there in bed twiddling your thumbs going, wow, I have a crack in my ceiling that I didn't know I had. And then physically, move your body. That's the other thing. What can you do to move your body? Can you climb an extra flight of stairs during the day? Can you take a walk to the mailbox versus your car? Sometimes it's starting small like that and then building up. And then another, what are you drinking? Are you drinking clean water, or are you drinking garbage filled water? You can do lots of things to your water. You can pray over your water. You can get structured water. There's spring water. I mean, you and I have talked about that, going to the spring to get water.
Yeah.
And then how much are you drinking? Are you
Mhm.
drinking the water?
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's lots of different ways to hit it. You can touch it from a lot of different ways.
Yeah. Yeah. And at the time it was like, well, can you ever remember a time that you were happy? Or could you imagine what it would be like to be happy? And if you place your full attention there, you can actually immerse yourself in happy, like right here, right now, simply by either remembering a time that you were happy, or just imagining, well, what if you were happy right now? What would that feel like? And,
Exactly.
it's amazing how our consciousness works.
And I would bet that most people, when you ask them to imagine themselves when they were happy, it's playing with my kids, walking on the beach, being in nature. It's not when I bought a Louis Vuitton pickleball
Right.
thing. I mean,
Right.
that does cause a momentary dopamine hit because you bought something. But it's fascinating when I'm in someone's home and I pull out a bag and the receipt is 2017 and they spent $500 at the Coach store. Yeah, it felt good in the moment, but clearly it didn't last, because here's this bag with, 4 inches of dust with these brand new items with the tag still sitting in your closet.
Mhm.
So we're not thinking, most of the time our happiness is when we're surrounded by friends and family, when we're doing something outside, when we're with other people, it's not, or when we've made a positive impact on the world, not so much, when I bought that blender.
Exactly. We're taught to be consumers, to what can we get? What can I get? What can I get? And the real joy is in giving. Like, what can I brought soul gifts and talents with me. Like, we all brought gifts and talents with us that we came to give to the world, to add to the collective. But we've been taught that we have to take, take, take. And once we shift that perspective and we start living by giving and doing the things that we love, whether it's playing piano or cooking or taking care of children, or, whatever it is that we're here to give that brings us joy by giving that's what we're here to do.
And that happiness lasts longer. I mean,
Exactly.
when you brought your book out, how happy did you feel, and how long does that last? And that's a renewable happiness, right? Every time you talk about it, or you know that you've put this goodness into someone's hands, you feel good and they feel good. So there's that whole collective happiness, raise your vibration thing. When you're with kids and you're spending your time giggling and laughing and playing and blowing bubbles. I keep bubbles in my kitchen. When I'm having, I blow bubbles in the kitchen. um that's when you're happy. That's the stuff. People when they're laying on their deathbed, their regret isn't that they didn't buy that Porsche 911. It's that they didn't spend more time with their kids, they didn't take a trip, that they didn't have an experience. That's where the happiness is.
Exactly. Look at this beautiful planet. Look at all of the amazing places to discover, all of the adventures that await as we go and travel this beautiful world. There's so many things. We're here to really live and discover and have adventures. And, it's so exciting to see that we are right now at the precipice of moving out of that whole survival mode. And we are starting to really realize that we have far more control over our lives than we've ever been allowed to know.
Agreed. And when something bad happens, the best way to look at it is, what can I learn from this? What can I take away? How
Mhm.
can I shift what I do and how I interact in the world to make myself happier and make the world a better place? Because then it's like a feedback loop. It just keeps spinning, and it just keeps giving on both sides.
Exactly. When the bad things happen, it's like, yes, they can happen, but we don't have to get stuck there. We don't have to keep living it over and over and over again. And, there are ways that we can clear these traumas out of our energy field, so that it's something that happened, but it's not something that's still triggering us. Mm, So that we're still living it over and over and over again.
Agreed. And I think so much of it is just to your point that you just said, it's living, it's getting out there and living.
Hmm. Yeah. And, it really boils down to a choice. Like, there was a point where I was like, all right, I can either take myself out, or I can actually learn how to live. Because I was on the brink of suicide. I didn't want to stay here. It was just too traumatic being embodied on this planet and seeing all the pain and suffering and, trying to earn a living when, like, I was clearly already here living, but I wasn't actually living. I was just surviving. And it got down to that point of, well, I can pack it all in, or I can actually learn how to live as a masterful being on this planet. So that was it. It became like a choice. I had to really make the choice. And I realized that saying, I want to live, I want my life to be easy. Like, that wasn't really a choice. Like, yes, I want everything to be easy, but that's not the same as actually, I'm going to choose to make this easy. I'm going to choose how to learn to make life easy and fun and happy and enjoyable.
Yes. I think, and what's interesting is, as you said, that easy is something that I think people mean it's going to happen for me, but in order for it to happen for you, it requires action. And I
Yes.
think people, we have been programmed that we should be able to just, law of attraction, right? I should be able to just sit on my sofa and I should be able to drink a soda and get thin because I'm thinking I want to get thin. Well, that's great, but it's going to require some action.
Exactly. Yeah, your actions and your words have to align. They have to come into coherence.
And then when you have that inspired action, which is what you had, then it doesn't feel like work anymore. And then it's easy. I think that's a piece that gets misconstrued, misinterpreted. People think, oh, ease. Yeah, but just because something is ease, I mean, people like to go on a hike, but the hike can have some challenges to it too. And when you fork over, when you work through the challenge of the hike, it's that much more of a rush and an uplifting.
Exactly. And if it's a hard hike, but there's a beautiful view at the top, like by the time you get to the top, it's like, I'm glad I persevered. Look at this. This is amazing. If I had given up, I would never have seen all of this.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes. I have a friend who hiked Kilimanjaro, and she said, it was one of the hardest things she's ever done, but when she got to the top, it was such a rush.
That.
Yeah.
Yeah, this planet has so many amazing places to explore.
Absolutely. I mean, even in your own backyard. I mean,
Right?
I have this friend, she says everything's a microcosm of the macrocosm. And I love that. Like, it's amazing how many times that has like popped up for me since she said it, like as many times as she has. It's kind of ingrained. But just like even in her backyard, I have this rose bush that I was given when I moved in by a friend. And it started out, as this little tiny plant, and now it's taller than I am. And
Oh,
every time I go out there, I'm always, it's different every time. There's different blooms. The dew is on it differently. The sun hits it differently. Get to watch it as it grows, as the petals, open. It's beautiful.
wow. Yeah, there's so many beautiful things in life. And when we start to look for them and appreciate them when we see them, then that amplifies
Hmm.
and we start seeing more,
Yes. Like the next thing you know, I'm out taking the dog, and now I'm out taking the dog in the dark so that I can look at the stars.
right?
And I've only got a tiny backyard. I don't even have a big backyard to use. So you can find it, and it's so you can get lost. I read this book about awe, and it's all about getting lost in the awe. And when you get lost in that, and you just can feel that sense of awe below, of kind of rise up through you, it's amazing how all of a sudden looking at the stars is taking on a whole different meaning.
Exactly. Yeah, it's an amazing universe,
It is. And if we can get lost in it, that'd be pretty cool.
right? Ooh, we love it. And when we start to realize that we are non-physical beings, that like we're not trapped in these bodies, and we can use it. Our imagination is the tool that we use to explore all of the non-physical realms and all of the extraterrestrial realms. Like we're not just here, but we're taught that if we go somewhere in our imagination, that that wasn't real, that was just your imagination. But there's an entire universe that we can explore right here just by focusing with our imagination and starting to tune in,
So cool.
right?
Yeah. I like when I meditate. One of my favorite things to say when I'm meditating is I have this feeling of like I'm trying to stand on ice skates. You'll totally understand this one. Trying to stand on ice skates without moving. You can't do it. You can't remain perfectly still on ice skates. There's always that little bit of a shimmy, that little bit of a shift. That's what I feel when I meditate. And that's when I know I'm tapped into something bigger than myself.
I love that. Yes, as an avid skater growing up, I totally get it.
Right? Like you can't stand perfectly still on ice skates. It doesn't happen. Not
So,
for any long time.
well, you know what? If you gather momentum, you can strike a pose and you can stand absolutely perfectly still, but be moving at the same time, which I think is so cool for skating. I used to teach my students this. It's like gather momentum, then strike a pose and don't move, but be still as a statue as you glide across the ice. It's super fun.
Ooh, I never thought of that before. Okay, next time I come up, we're going ice skating.
There we go. What fun to be had. There
Yes, yes. And I understand there's a large rink by you.
you go, many.
And
Depending
depending
on
on the
the
time,
season.
there are a few lakes.
Right, exactly. Goodness gracious. Yeah. So how do you, so a happiness architect, so you teach people how to create a life of happiness?
So my tagline is I bring the blueprint for you to design your own happiness. So there's a lot of different ways to be happy, and there's lots of different ways to talk about how to get there, and my clients get to choose how they want to be happy. So what's your door that you want to open to get in? There's a long hallway and you get to choose the door, and ultimately it's just a different journey to get to the same place, but they all end up at the same place.
I love that.
So to
That's,
your point, you get to choose happiness, but you get to choose how to get there too.
yeah. You know, we're all these beautifully unique individuals. So the path to happiness is not just one path. It is a, like you say, this blueprint, and we can do with it however, whatever we want, just like life. Like there are a bazillion different ways to experience being alive. You can be a tree, you can be a goldfish, you can be a deer or a duck or a human, and look at the humans, like 8 billion different ways to do human on this planet.
Exactly, exactly. And just like overcoming trauma and being able to live with it, to thrive through it, there's a million different ways to do it. It doesn't have to be therapy, although therapy is an amazing way. For me, it was a Reiki session that really opened up the door. It kind of snuck up and got me, from this on the side door that I didn't even know that I had. I had this great wall built up in front of me. No one was getting through that wall, but my wall had an edge, and the Reiki got around and snuck in. So it's beautiful that way, that we have all of these options to do everything.
Exactly. And just because we've experienced trauma, and there's not a single being on this planet, a single human that has not experienced trauma. I mean, unless you're under 6 months old, perhaps, but life is traumatic on this planet, but we don't have to continue that trend, and we don't have to get stuck in the past, because anything that has already happened to us happened in the past. The past is no longer here. We don't have to allow that to define us. And we can
Exactly.
choose how we move forward.
You get to pick. You get to pick. You get to pick how you think, where you go, how you do things. If you go to work tomorrow, if you decide to give it all up and go pack up everything in a van and drive cross country. I mean, you get to do whatever feels right for you. I have this young girl, speaking of that I'm friends with. I call her a young girl because she's so much younger than I am, but she's amazing. And she's traveled the world. She's slept under bridges, and now she's guiding people to take trips all over the world.
Oh, nice. Yeah, we need
So
those people.
yeah, she's like, I call her my inspo.
I love it. So today, Lianne and I are here asking you, are you willing to be happy? Are you willing to live a life of happiness and unhook yourself from any traumas, any part of your past that may still be dragging you down into that quicksand? Are you ready to let it all go so you can actually be free and be happy?
Yeah, just one step, just one step, just try a step in a couple different directions and see what feels right.
Exactly. So if you're looking for someone to help guide you into that realm of happy, Lianne, how do they reach out to you?
They can reach out to me on my website at liannehofer.com. And I have a feeling that you're going to include a link for that.
Yeah.
And I'll be happy to connect with you. Just if you send me a message through my website, please know my return message may end up in your spam.
Ah,
I've discovered that happens.
oh, yeah. Technology isn't always totally reliable. So,
That's the wonders of technology. You will get a response. You just have to look for it sometimes.
right?
But
Beautiful.
that's the easiest way to reach out.
Awesome. So you do clutter clearing. I definitely need to connect with you on that. Get you come up here and help me clear my clutter, just because it'd be
Ooh,
fun to
sounds
have one
good.
person.
I'm on my way. Especially now that
Yay!
the weather's turned cool.
Right? That'd make me happy too. I'd be so to have that experience. Beautiful. So there are so many ways that Lianne can help you to clear clutter, clear out the baggage of the past, and open that pathway forward to the happiness that you truly deserve to live in.
That you came here for.
Exactly. And we'll also have the book that Lianne was featured in. So, and it is called Surviving Trauma. Is that what it's called?
It's called Stop the Silence,
Stop.
Surviving Childhood Sexual Trauma.
Yeah.
So even if that isn't the trauma that someone's been through, at the end of each chapter, there's practices to utilize to help overcome whatever the trauma is.
Nice. Beautiful. So many resources for everybody here today. If you're looking to overcome the trauma of some disease, that's my field. So we'll show you that it's not the trauma that you think it is, and it's far simpler to heal than we've ever been allowed to know. You can find
And I highly recommend Lisa's course. It's amazing. And if you don't want to take the course, get her book because her book is filled with loads of wisdom.
Thank you, Lianne. You can find me at connectingyoutoyou.com. My book is called The Simplicity of Self-Healing. It's now in its 10th anniversary edition. So
congratulations, jazz hands.
thank you. So thank you everyone for joining us today. We hope you've gotten something out of this conversation. We hope that you have been inspired to realize that you too can live a happy, healthy life where you actually live, not just survive. So Lianne, thank you so much for joining us again today. We love having you here on Solution Sunday.
Thank you, Lisa.
All right. Take care, everyone. Create for yourselves a great week. Until next week. Bye for now.